નમસ્કાર, હું આદર્શ છું. વેલકમ ટુ આદર્શ એજ્યુકેશન સોસાયટી. Hello students, welcome to the fourth part of chapter 9, Soil of Standard 7 Science. In the last part, that is third part, we discussed about the soil profile, isn't it? In which we discussed that the soil is formed by the breaking down of rocks by the action of wind, water and climate. This process is called weathering. That's what we discussed. Then after, a vertical section through different layers of the soil is called soil profile. A vertical section through different layers of the soil is called soil profile, and the different layers are called horizons. And then after we discussed about A horizon, B horizon, C horizon and bedrock. That's what we discussed in the last part. In this part we are going to discuss soil types. We will discuss soil types. So let's start, and this is on the page number 99. On the page number 99. So open your textbook, page number 99, and let's start with soil types. As you know, weathering of rock produces small particles of various materials. Weathering of rocks produces small particles of various materials. This includes sands and clay. This includes sand and clay. If the particles are somehow it is big, then we used to say it is sand, and the particles are very fine, then we say it is a clay. The relative amount of sand and clay depend upon the rock from which the particles were formed. Understand very well. See, the relative amount of sand and clay depends upon the rock from which the particles were formed. That is the parent rock. What is parent rock? See, the parent rock is what? From which the sand and clay particles are formed. That is a parent rock. And the relative amount of sand and clay depends upon the rock from which the particles were formed. See, it depends upon the different rock. From some rock, the amount of sands is more than the amount of clay. And those stones, we can say those are parent rock. Try to understand this. Then, the mixture of rock particles and humus is called the soil. What is soil? The mixture of rock particles and humus is called the soil. If you want to underline these things, which is very important, and these are, we can say your MCQ, we can say your blanks, we can say your questions, small short questions. So if you want, you may underline this. Then living organisms such as bacteria, plant roots and earthworm are also important parts of any soil. See, let's see once again. Living organisms such as bacteria, plant roots and earthworm are also important parts of any soil. Then this soil is classified on the basis of portion of particles of various sizes. Once again, this soil is classified. See, there is a classification of soil. Then how they classified the soils? The soil is classified on the basis of the portion of particles of various soil. On the basis of the particles of various soil. If soil contains greater portion of big particles, see, if soil contains greater portion of big particles, it is called sandy soil. It is called sandy soil. We know that the big particles, if there are big particles, then we used to say it is sand. And that is why, if soil contains greater portion of big particles, then it is called sandy soil. If the portion of fine particle is relatively higher, if the portion of fine particles is relatively higher, then it is called clay soil. We know the clay, isn't it? So, see, if the particles are very fine, then we used to say it is clay, isn't it? So, if the portion of fine particles is relatively higher, then it is called clay soil. Okay? Then, let's go further. The size of the particles in the soil has an influence on its properties. The size of particles in the soil has an influence on its property. Matlab, the property of the soil is depend upon the size of the particles in it. The property of the soil is depends upon the size of the particles available in it. Sand particles are quite large. Sand particles are quite large. They cannot fit close together. As the sand particles are large, they cannot fit close together. So there are large spaces between them. As the sand particles are very large, they cannot fit together. That is why there are large spaces between them. These spaces are filled with air. These spaces are filled with air. We say that the sand is well aerated. We say the sand is well aerated. Then what is aerated? What is aerated? Exposed to the circulation of air. As the sand particles are large, they cannot fit together. That is why there is a space in between. And hence, in this space there used to be the air, isn't it? And that is why we say that the sand is well aerated. Water can drain quickly through the space between the sand particles, and it is also very much easy. Why? Because there is too much space in between, comparatively too much space in between the particles of sand. That is why water can drain quickly through the spaces between the sand particles. So, sandy soil tend to be light, well aerated and rather dry. So, the sandy soil tend to be light in weight. In weight, it is tend to be light. Why? Because in between there is too much space. That is why it is tend to be light. Well aerated, that what we discussed, well aerated and rather dry. Why? Because water drains quickly from that type of soil. That is why rather dry. Clay particles being much smaller pack tightly together. Now we are discussing about clay particles. They are being much smaller, packed tightly together. leaving little space for air, है ना? And as they pack tightly together, that is why what happens? Leaving little space for air, unlike sandy soil. Water can be held in the tiny gaps between the particles of clay, and that is why water cannot drain. Water can be held in the tiny gaps between the particles of clay. Why? Because they are tight in between, they are tied together. So clay soils have less air naturally. So clay soils have less air, but they are heavy. But they are heavy as they hold more water than the sandy soil. The best topsoil for growing plants is loam. The best topsoil, the upper layer, or we can say a horizon. The best topsoil for growing plants is loam. Loamy soil is a mixture of sand, clay and another type of soil particles known as silt. Once again, loamy soil is a mixture of, if you want to underline, you may underline it. Loamy soil is a mixture of sand, clay and another type of soil particle known as silt. Now, what is silt? What is silt? Silt is fine sand, clay or other material carried by running water and deposit as a sediment. What is silt? Fine sand, clay or other material carried by running water and deposit as a sediment. You must have learnt about the delta. Delta, the area of Ganga, that land, that is what you must have learned in the social science. And this silt is a sediment. Okay, so it is a sediment. So loamy soil is a mixture of sand, clay and another type of soil particle known as silt. Silt occurs as a deposit in river beds. River beds. Silt occurs as a deposit in river beds. The size of the silt particles is between those of sand and clay. The size of the silt particles is between those of sand and clay. The loamy soil also has humus in it. The loamy soil has also humus in it. It has the right water holding capacity for the growth of plants. And that is why, see, this is a question also. Why the topsoil for growing plants is low? Or we can say for growing plants, why the loamy soil is the best? This type of questions they may ask you. Then this is the paragraph to answer. Okay? And with this, we will end this part. We are going to close this part, or will end this part, and try to read these things repetitively from the textbook, as well as watch this video 2 to 3 times. Why? Because there are many important things are there in this video, and there are many small questions also are there. That is why repeat this video, watch this video repetitively. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Take care of yourselves, and we'll meet you in the next session. Thank you.